Welcome to the PharmaSource podcast, recorded on stage at CDMO Live Europe 2026 in Rotterdam. This episode is sponsored by PharmaBlock, a fully integrated CRDMO providing research, development and manufacturing services from early discovery to commercial production.
I would like to introduce our next speaker, Sham Azal-Purkar, CEO of Collabrix, is up next with his presentation, Scaling Digital Collaboration Across Sponsor, CMO, CDMO Networks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sham Azal-Purkar. I'm CEO of Collabrix. Thanks for joining this morning. So the topic of the session is primarily how do you scale CDMOs and CMOs and the sponsor network in a digital framework. Bit of my background, I got about 40 years of experience in manufacturing, supply chain, SAP development. So all of that is in my blood. So I know, developed, implemented in most of the solution. Quick agenda here. I'll talk a few slides about what Collabrix does, talk about the challenges in external manufacturing, digital collaboration, a framework, how do you scale it, a framework that is required to scale. Talk about BioForum. Probably some of you may be familiar with it, some of the frameworks that we are building at the BioForum, and a brief case study of what we have done recently to scale CMOs and CDMOs with one of the large pharma. Few takeaways, and then Q&A. This is probably a 1 hour session. I'll try to go through it in about 15 minutes, focus on maybe the key points in here. Right? Okay, what is Collabrix? It's a digital collaboration platform, primarily to connect the CMOs, CDMOs, and the sponsors. It covers end-to-end supply chains, all modalities, from your small molecule, large molecules, your CAR-T therapies, and end-to-end processes. From the supply chain standpoint, starting from tech transfer, forecasting, PO collaboration, inventory collaboration, up to the 3PL integration as well. So it covers all of it as such. We'll talk about digital maturity, so it supports all digital maturity, starting from somebody just using paper, PDF, Excel to complete Excel files. Flexibility, so you've got all different processes for the product, markets. How do you manage those? You can configure those. It's AI enabled. I'll talk a little bit about that also, what that means. Everybody's talking about AI enablement. Workflow automation, the idea is to how do you automate the whole end-to-end process and drive the process by exception. That's the key part of it. And it's scalable because of the architecture we have. It's built on a blockchain. Don't want to go too much into technical, and it uses AI as well as a cloud as part of it, right? So it's in a nutshell, it's a digital platform for collaborating between CDMOs, CMOs, and the sponsors. Just to give you a look and feel of it, it's different dashboards, provides all the exceptions, detailed data that is coming in from the CMOs. You have different filters, configurable process flows, managed through configuration. All of it is through configuration and has the ability to define different process flows. This is a dashboard for manufacturing data, and then you can drill down on all different kinds of data, starting from batch statuses, deviations, change control, could be your some of the yield details, maybe some of the key parameters, CPVs, CVVs, all those details as part of it as well. I'll go into how that is built, what the framework behind it, I'll discuss that in a little bit of detail. So challenges, right? Probably we have seen a lot of surveys today, last couple of days. We know that external manufacturing is more, I would say, it's not, especially for the pharmas, it's not for increasing their capacities, it's becoming the core process for them, especially for the product development as well as the commercial side of it. So it's growing, so it's core part of the whole their supply chain. The networks are becoming complex. While you have networks that are complex, you've got complexity in compliance, regulatory stuff. So digital collaboration in today's world is a competitive advantage for everyone. For the CDMOs, CMOs, it's not that if you're going to do it, it's when you're going to do it, and how do you get ready for it, right? So it is I have seen a lot of RFPs where they define the key requirement for digital integration as one of the key component of it, right? So key thing is, how do you prepare for it? And it's coming. So how do we scale the whole collaboration, digital collaboration? Few things, I think probably every one of you have gone through it, and probably your processes also drive all of that. This is one of the key barriers for somebody to go completely digital for the digital collaboration. There are papers coming in, your COAs, COCs, PDFs, your Excels coming in, you've got some folks have ERP on the back end, right? All those processes are happening in a fragmented way, and we have got 30, 40, 50 emails and documents going for a batch as such, right? So that's basically drives somebody to go completely digital collaboration, right? So what does that mean? If you want to go for digital collaboration in those scenarios, you have got integration costs, very high integration costs, onboarding, you have got a one-offs for integration, you've got data latency, especially you've got an Excel spreadsheet, somebody has to review it for error, and probably a week or two before somebody can review it. So the key thing is the way we are doing it today, the current model doesn't scale. You'll have to go one-offs as such. So how do we address that, right? As I mentioned, some of you may be familiar with BioForum. There's a work group that we are working on coming up with definitely addressing some of the challenges, right? It's DISCO, Digital Integration Sponsor, and Contract Manufacturing Organization. So idea here is, the goal is to come up with a reusable building blocks that can be used as a standard across all the relationship between sponsors and the CDMOs. Key thing is come up with a standard framework to share the data. One of the key components is the data structures, right? So define ones and then use those data structures across the whole network as such. The integration touch points, we identifying those, which are the touch points where that collaboration occurs across your supply chain, and definitely drive the whole governance from the regulatory standpoint. Right? So the key thing is standardize the messages, identify the messages that you are going to collaborate on, and have a framework that allows you to collaborate. The process is we go through end-to-end supply chain from tech transfer to the 3PL shipment after receiving the product, identify all the touch points, right? So maybe in the manufacturing it could be, or maybe from the PO, forecasting, start of the forecast, confirmation of a forecast, PO collaboration, creation of a PO, confirmation, acknowledgement, right? Changes to the PO, right? Start of the batch, status of the batches, critical processes, test results. So we identified about 100 different messages across the whole supply chain. And these messages, we basically, once we have identified it, then we said, what are the detailed data elements, right? So for each of the messages, there are standard data elements that we have. And while defining those, we looked at what are the industry standards that may be available for each of those messages that you have. Maybe if you are doing manufacturing data, could be it's ISA 95 and S88. If you are doing a PO collaboration, it could be if you're SAP shop, it's some of your IDOCs or EDI 850. So leveraging all of that, we have come up with data elements for each of those messages and standardize it. One point, the key thing is the group is a consortium of CMOs and CDMOs, so they are the ones who are defining and approving, and there are a lot of inputs that have gone in. But the key thing is to come up with a standard message structure, standard messages for the whole process. So framework, right? So don't go into too much details about the technical model and other things, but the idea is, once you have defined these messages, right, you have different maturity of CMOs that provide these data. And that data may come from different documents, different sources, but whatever source that data comes in, you pre-process it into a standard structure, right? So if you have a CO of A, different products, different CMOs may have different structure, but when you can pre-process it, but get it into a standard structure to collaborate with the sponsors. Same thing with what sponsor shares with you from the tech transfer standpoint. So what we have, once we have identified the standard messages and the structures, based on the maturity of your CMO and CDMO, you convert those into standard messages and ingest and share with the parties as such. So that's the key part of it. This is where AI comes in. So we have a AWS tech stack that looks at it, looks at all the data elements, and applies some Claude on it to make sure that the data elements coming in are basically with a high confidence level, right? But this is probably the only way you could scale different maturity of CMOs and CDMOs. So how do you go about onboarding CMOs with the low to medium maturity, and what is the approach you should take, right? So when I say medium to low maturity, that means they're doing it on a paper, Excel, all different sorts of documents. And there are some data that is digital, right? So one way is definitely leveraging AI with the AWS and Claude as such. So idea is to how do you digitize all these documents and convert into a standard messages? That's where the tool comes in. The tool may come, there are tools that basically you send to a SharePoint or an email, extract those, digitize those. There are tools available to manage those as well. But all these so idea here is to how do you onboard those that are doing these processes today with emails, with SharePoints, with PDFs, but digitize and collaborate. And probably 80 to 90% of the CMOs and CDMOs are in this category, where you have both combination of digital and hybrid kind of stuff. AI definitely does that, automates that. Our tool does it, but that's the only way to onboard low maturity quickly on the platform and start collaborating, right? High maturity, it becomes very few of them. ERP to ERP, we are working on some custom CM sponsors and CDMOs where it goes from one ERP to the other ERP, starting from maybe a PO created or a forecast created in SAP in the sponsor, goes back on the platform, acknowledged, confirmed, a sales order created on the CDMO side, and then all the batch status is automatically. So it is possible. It's a little expensive, but long term it probably gives you much more flexibility and visibility into the whole supply chain, right? So you've got a low to medium CDMOs, maturity in digital digitization, use AWS and Claude, use AI to do that. For this, probably end-to-end API connection that you could have from ERP to ERP, maybe ERP MES to the ERPs. So there are standards that are available that will allow us. So business impact, I'll not go too much detail, primarily from the business sponsor standpoint, no custom integration, right? You don't have to have a integration with every CMO, right? You have got onboarding very quickly. So in one of we have onboarded about 20 CMOs, CDMOs about in 3 to 4 months. And once you have that, you can do a cookie cutter approach to onboard it. Definitely visibility, less latency in data, right? Definitely on the regulatory confidence also, because it's in a digital format, you have much more analytics that you can do on it, right? From the CDMO, CMO standpoint, it's not a one-off. So if I give to one sponsor, same data messages, same data, I could give it to all of them, right? So it becomes standardized. You don't have to build it for this sponsor, this another sponsor, but all the messages are standard and you do it once and you start sharing it, right? Single integration model with the sponsors, clear data ownership while you're doing it. That's sometimes a touchy point when you're discussing the ownership, unless it is managed through your contracts. I wouldn't say, more than anything else, I would say enhanced transparency as well for the sponsors. I think that's one of the critical areas. Definitely the folks we are working with, there is very strong partnership, especially the strategic partners, CMOs, CDMOs that are being onboarded. It's a long-term relationship that is built. Both CDMOs and the sponsor invest in it. Case study. So objective is the sponsor has very fragmented processes, all paperwork, checks it, goes into the system, puts this information, validates it, if the batch is ready. Wanted to streamline that process, especially some of their critical supply chain processes, automate those, right? That's what at least the initial scope was. CMO profile, hybrid, almost 80 to 90% of the CMOs are in this space. Emails, SharePoint, sending through, sharing it on emails and the SharePoint, Excel, PDFs, handwritten documents, right? All of those variations were there, right? So idea was, let's look at this complete PO collaboration, inventory collaboration, because they were providing APIs for the finished product, consumption of the material, consumption of the raw material components, allocation of the raw material components that have been sponsored, and complete reconciliation of the inventory that has been done. So if you look at it, the current state was, I got a COA, COC, I pick certain data from each of the documents, do certain thing from the release standpoint. That is where they were. The SAP shop and all of that was all manual, right? The first one, we went live in about 4 months, primarily digitized all those documents, converted those into the standard messages, and then shared with both sponsors and the CMOs, right? Long term is ERP to ERP, probably it's a really long term, there is a value, but it could be only for your strategic partners. You don't want to do it for everybody. But I would say that the MVP that we are doing is a very fast time to value, right? The CDMO, CMO doesn't need to do anything. They can go through the process that they are going through today, use AI and Claude to digitize the document and start sharing the documents. So you still have the documents, but all the data is in digital format to do. So our sponsor wants to take all that data into the data lake and all that analytics that they can do. Approach, I talked about connectivity approach based on the digital maturity. I would say start with the interim solution of digitizing and look at your strategic relationship with your sponsors and CDMOs, and then invest in ERP to ERP. Definitely long-term ERP to ERP would be of a huge value. But again, it takes time, effort, connecting complete systems, and just manage the whole process through exceptions, right? And to automate the whole process, there are opportunities to put in AI agents. Wherever there is a manual process coming in, there are 5 or 6 agents that we put it on top of it, where we basically drive all of those, where exception and drive it by the source. So there are opportunities to automate the whole end-to-end process as well. Key takeaways. External manufacturing is getting complex. Multi-tier, they want to have the visibility into not only into the one layer API, into the drug product, to the packaging, the whole to the warehouse. They want to have visibility and tracking. Custom integration, one-offs, it's not scalable. I wouldn't invest in it, even if the sponsors is ready to pay for it. The only way to scale is industry standards, right? For the messages as such, right? That probably would help with sponsors as well as for the CDMOs and CMOs. ERP to ERP, the way I was talking about, probably long term, maybe with strategic partners. So when you do the collaboration, don't look at it as a project. It's more of a framework backbone that you will need as you move forward. As I mentioned, the digital collaboration is required. It's not if, it's when, right? So you start looking at it, and it's beneficial to both CMOs, CDMOs, as well as for the sponsor.